We've had the partnership coffee cart at the Columbia Regional Program since 2005. It started with a vision from Robbie, who is the program director at the Columbia Regional Program. She received grant funds to purchase a coffee cart, and we have served over 40 students quite successfully. We are the first step most of the time for the skills training that these students will need for jobs out there later. And what we can do is we can take a little more time here. We've had a variety of students here, from deaf and hard of hearing, autism, traumatic brain injuries, blind visually impaired. One student I recall who was orthopedically impaired. But that's not what we lead with. We see a student for who they are. We can complement whatever the student brings to us.
We have a student named Quentin. He has a visual impairment, and he also has traumatic brain injury. They started the coffee cart project and asked if Quentin would be interested. I came in and watched Cindy working with Quentin. She didn't give him 16 steps. You know, she broke it down, and then he was getting support from the other two fellas that were behind him, because they were kind of watching, and he would look back once in a while to make sure he was getting approval from them as well. It wasn't overwhelming, because he can get overwhelmed very easily, and he was very comfortable because it was broken down. That's what I've seen, and if the whole day goes like that, I mean, it's no wonder he doesn't complain about it, which is pretty amazing for a teenager not to complain about work.
I think the big thing is confidence, which bleeds into a lot of other aspects of his life. He's, I think, a lot more mature. He's able, I think, to tackle a few more things than he was able to academically and socially.
He was pretty alone, even when he was sitting in the classroom, isolated and quiet, and not even with adults would he interact. The first day he came back from the coffee cart with coins in his pocket, we noticed an immediate difference of the shoulders back and his head straight, and he was just kind of walking with a bounce, and it hasn't stopped since. Getting out of the environment and coming down here and doing the coffee cart, I think that built his social skills to be able to maintain friendships, not just have them at school.
And I think the coffee cart experience will catapult him into other challenges and willingness to take on responsibilities, and you know, whether it's a job at another coffee cart or elsewhere.
Quentin's already talking about being a barista. That's what he wants to do now. He wants to work in a coffee shop.
My name is David Cahill. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired, primarily orientation and mobility specialist. Well, I think it's difficult for kids in general to find jobs. It's exponentially more difficult when you have a disability. One student in particular that is presently working here is learning to travel here independently. He's learning to use TriMet, and he has a visual impairment, so he's what we call an ID cane. He has some functional vision, but he's definitely limited. The coffee cart is allowing him to utilize the skills that he's learning in a very functional way to travel to a work site. This is a real important stepping stone to get those prerequisite skills. People with disabilities are quite capable of accomplishing things that you never could ever imagine they could. I think we often underestimate the abilities. I've had young blind people tell me, my biggest problem is not my blindness, it's people's perceptions of my blindness. And one of those perceptions is that they're not as capable as everyone else. And they need to have that opportunity to prove that they are capable and they can do these kind of things.
Well, my name is Susan Porter, and I'm a parent of a student who participated in the coffee cart for 2 years, and his name is Taylor Cutts, and he's a senior this year in the deaf and hard hearing program. Oh, I think it was incredibly beneficial for Taylor. I look at it as kind of a rite of passage for him, because as a student he was served in many different ways in his learning, but in this job he was serving others, and it was a real job, and there were real people that were coming to his cart to order a drink, and he was kind of in charge in that way of deciding how to make the drink, what it was they were saying, and the communication back and forth. He learned so many communication skills in that job. Amazing. He has the confidence to be empowered that he can do this and that it will work out. He didn't have that confidence before. And I think the coffee cart had a lot to do with it. I just think he's more comfortable in his own skin, which is kind of related to that. He's not a person with a disability that has to rely on other people to get things done. It was kind of a separation too from parental influence and kind of taking care of things for him, which he sort of wanted for a long time. Yeah, he's grown up. Yeah. The coffee cart, I feel like it was part of a circle of learning, because everything he learned there wasn't just about coffee. It was about how you talk with people, how you handle money, how you treat people, how you work with the team. I mean, all of those things are things that he'll use in any kind of job experience he has. And I think he's much more ready for those other job experiences now as a result. The coffee cart experience helped Taylor be more willing to try other new things that are not necessarily job related, but they could be. He just kind of glowed when he would come home and talk about how work went. And true, work isn't always full of joy, but ideally work should start from some place of joy. And I think for a first experience really serving the public like this, to start with joy is really good. A business like this does provide a tremendous intermediate step to going out in a setting where you don't necessarily have all the support staff right there to come in and help. Actually, there's a fair amount of things in a coffee cart experience that Taylor had to kind of figure out. And if he didn't understand something, he had to ask. And if he needed to do something differently than how he was doing it, he had to learn, okay, this is how you do it, not the way I did it before. He had to, sequence things. He had to figure out timing. So all of those things, I think, help prepare him for going out and realizing that he's going to be working with a supervisor, and they're going to have, rules and standards, and he's going to need to make some adjustments, and he's going to need to raise his hand or write or in some other way communicate if he doesn't understand anything or he has questions. I think setting up programs like the coffee cart is really critical in students making the transition from high school, where they're largely sitting in classrooms, to the real world of employment and customer relations and communication in a larger venue.
The thing about the coffee cart is that, a lot of times students in special ed get put into internships or work experiences that are like jobs that aren't really realistic out in the community, whereas the coffee cart is actually realistic. I mean, you can take the skills that Cindy gives the students and put students into another job just like that. The coffee cart has so many different facets of like pre-employment skills that need to be built that it could be accessible to anybody. I mean, it can be like a cash register and somebody's working on money, and it's very applicable. In fact, we have a cash register now in our class to practice that, to support it. It could be delivering coffees, and someone that is in a wheelchair that doesn't have mobility but can use their wheelchair to access people and take orders and that kind of thing. It can be actually running the coffee machine, or even as basic as like learning how to pour something into something, you know, working on fine motor skills. Yesterday, actually, we had a student here that was just kind of doing a little bit of a trial where she's quadriplegic ventilator and she was delivering coffees. I mean, there is a way to make a coffee cart accessible to everybody and to have learning gains for anybody and any ability. There's like a level of pride among our students for the coffee cart. Part of it is it's like kind of a higher level responsibility, and a lot of our students that we would not expect to rise to that challenge do. I mean, we're talking about students that get up in the middle of winter in Oregon, which is rainy and wet and cold. They get on a bus at really early in the morning and get here so that the coffee cart can open. And that level of dedication we don't always see with our students. But for some reason, the coffee cart is one of those carrots that we can dangle for them that puts the like level of responsibility on their shoulders, and they take it on. When I talk about soft skills at the coffee cart, I'm talking about like at the level of when someone walks up, what does your face look like? I'm talking about when you walk in the door, how do you hold yourself? Do you hold yourself kind of like this, or do you hold yourself up like you're a worker versus just someone that's in the building? I'm also talking about what you talked about, which is hygiene. Hygiene is huge. Really, these skills are the skills that make it or break it in an interview, or when you first meet an employer and want this job. If you don't look good and act like you want the job, you're not going to get it.
And that is our goal, is that our students are ready to be employed, but not just be employed, to keep a job.
This job is a job that we could take the students, pick them up, put them in another job just like it out in the community. The students can picture themselves being baristas out in the community. They know what that looks like because they've been to coffee shops.
I feel like everybody that we have brought to her has come out with a lot more confidence than they would have normally at another internship, because it's so real life. And she's made several of our students successful to go on to different positions in the community. We had a student who worked here for 3 years, and he went on to, he is still continuing today, working at Burgerville down the road. So he is still employed there and doing very well. And he is one of Cindy's students that we brought to her.
My name is Tom. I worked at the coffee cart for about 2 or 3 years. Right now, I'm working at a place called Burgerville. Working at the coffee cart helped me with the interview at Burgerville. I was more confident in myself when I was telling the interviewer, my employer, how well I could work, how well I could handle things, how well I could deal with other people. The coffee cart has taught me how to be punctual, how to keep myself well groomed. It's taught me how to work fast with money here so I can work the cash register, to stay calm under pressure, and also how to work well with customers. It taught me other things I could use at more workplaces as I go along. These skills are important to learn because you could use them more than just at the coffee cart or at Burgerville. You can use them at anywhere, really. I've actually learned to enjoy getting up earlier in the day here. I've even become a morning person because of it. It's taught me to pretty much enjoy work whenever I get the chance to do it.